is a presentation of Main Street Media, your source for news, sports, and information on Main Street in Middle Tennessee.
From preps to pros and everything in between, it's Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Live from the Lee Company studio. With the Hall of Famer Mo Patton, here's Chris Yao.
Welcome into a Tuesday on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. We have a lot to get to in today's show, and we're excited to do so, but
I mean, that's all I got. That's all I got. I'm all right.
that's good.
I'm all right.
It's Tuesday's not, this Tuesday is a little weird because we kind of have a weird week ahead of us starting tomorrow and Thursday. I mean,
And Friday.
yeah, I mean, tomorrow is going to be a normal day, but Thursday is the day when we kind of have to, we have a lot going on this week. Let's just put it that way. And it almost feels like a short week of work because we're going to be out of town, but there's a lot that's going to happen this weekend during the Blue Cross Bowl Championships, and I'm looking forward to it, but also dreading it a little. Not going to lie. That being said, what a show.
What are you dreading?
Just how much we're going to have to talk, because it's going to be a lot.
You make it sound like you don't like talking.
Exactly.
Which we all know is inaccurate.
It's not that I mind the talking. It's the fact that my voice will go away. By the end of the weekend, I will not have one.
Well, that's okay. As long as it's by the end of the week.
It's not going to be as much more than what you're thinking.
As long as you get through Friday.
And, you know, the weather's going to be great, so it's not like you're going to have
fantastic
bad weather to work with your throat. You're going to be good.
I'll
be fine.
I'm looking forward to it.
Enjoy the ride.
The only
Think
problem
positives.
the only problem is there won't be any apple cider to quench my
There may not be any need, though, as you and Stephen Hargis of the Chattanooga
Hey,
Times
I will
Free
put
Press
that-
have pointed out.
I'll put that stuff on ice. What you talking about? It was delicious.
That would be good.
A little ice cider.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Yeah.
I'd still drink it, even if
Sure.
it's as warm as they say it's.
Oh
like-
yeah, it was so good.
It's like a hot cup of tea. It's good. It'd be good for your throat
Exactly.
as you have to talk so much. He acts like it's such a pain.
I'm telling you, he makes
know.
it sound like he doesn't
No.
like talking, and anybody that knows him knows that that's not true. So,
I have
Mr.
never-
DJ over here.
Yeah, I've never.
Mr. DJ, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Trivia,
Yeah.
Mr.
Are you DJing or trivia anywhere this week?
He's
Not this
triviaing
week.
tonight.
No. See,
No, not tonight.
see, you're
Not
fine then.
Oh,
You're fine.
not tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
you'll
See,
be
if you had a wedding and trivia, I could maybe understand that. Yeah, that'd be taxing on top of everything. But you're gonna be fine.
I'm
And you're
not-
gonna have breaks.
Yeah.
Enjoy
And get
the
to
ride.
and get to watch 9 great football games.
Yeah, you get to watch football games. I get to
gonna
watch
be-
football for the first time this year.
You won't know how to act.
I know.
You'll still be watching it on TV for half the time.
I'm gonna be standing next to Mo while he's trying to keep all of his colorful stats. I'm gonna say, Mo, what does that player do? What is that? What's offsides, Mo?
You'll be getting ignored.
What does that mean? And Mo will say, I don't really know. I don't know how that just happened. Oh man.
There's a lot of that.
Let's give them some results and some scheduling because we have a ton to get to, Mo. So now we give you the rundown.
This is the Rundown. Let's do it.
This is your Tuesday Rundown brought to you by Jim Davis at Grow Live Give. Visit them at growlivegive.com or give them a call at 615-682-0022. Securities offered through IFP Securities, LLC, DBA Independent Financial Partners, IFP member, FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through IFP Advisors, LLC, DBA Independent Financial Partners, Registered Investment Advisor. IFP and Grow Live Give are not affiliated.
Oh, in Monday high school basketball action, Franklin County defeated Smyrna 62-23. Huntland downed Culleoka 53-26. And Hampshire defeated Mount Pleasant 62-53.
In boys action, it was Smyrna 70 over Franklin County 64. Culleoka defeated Huntland 73-54. And Mount Pleasant a winner over Hampshire 73-49.
In high school bowling yesterday, Columbia Academy defeated University School of Nashville 21-2 in postseason action. Also in NCAA men's basketball action at Memorial Gym, the host Commodores defeated Mississippi Valley State 75-36.
Today's high school basketball action all beginning at 6 p.m. Beach is at Summit. Independence hosting Cane Ridge. Columbia Central travels to Rockville. Culleoka is at Moore County, and Loretto hosting Lawrence County.
Also, Hampshire hosts Lewis County. Columbia Academy hosts Middle Tennessee Christian. Mount Pleasant travels to Murfreesboro Central. Spring Hill is on the road at East Hickman. And Zion Christian travels to Santa Fe. In high school wrestling tonight, Spring Hill and Cornersville will both be at Marshall County. That will start at around 5:45. And if you know wrestling, you know what I mean.
In high school bowling action, earlier today, Columbia Academy took on Friendship Christian, and the winner was in the 3:30 championship match. We don't have results from that just yet, but we'll get them to you tomorrow. In NCAA men's action tonight on the SEC network and on our sister station, 103.7 FM here in Columbia, WKRM, Tennessee hosts Presbyterian.
The Blue Hose.
The Blue Hose. And in NHL action, the Nashville Predators are back at Bridgestone for a 7 p.m. puck drop against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Assuming that's going to be on Bally, it's potentially just on ESPN Plus. I don't know. And in NBA action, the Grizzlies are at the Toronto Raptors. They tip at 6:30 p.m. So TV action there. Just flip around till you find it, I guess. But that's going to do it for today's rundown on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Mo, we have a lot of college football to talk about today, and we're going to talk about a ton of it with David Ubben here momentarily. We're going to talk about it, obviously the top four, and we're going to get deeper into these coaching vacancies and hires, and probably we may even talk a little bit about the Heisman because it's so wide open. Heck, we may all have 3 or 4 different front runners. Who knows? But we would be remiss if we did not start this with Brian Kelly.
Wow. I mean, obviously a lot of buzz on social media over the last 24 hours or so regarding Brian Kelly going to LSU and the way that went down and the way he let his team know and all of the fallout from that. But the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from that for me was that Notre Dame has a legitimate chance to play for a national championship. And this isn't Lincoln Riley jumping out on Oklahoma before they go to a bowl game. You know, this isn't the dude from Fresno State going to Washington before Fresno goes to a bowl game. This is a team that has a chance to play for a national championship. And your head coach texts you at 7 last night asking you to come to a meeting at 7 this morning to tell you that he's leaving after he's already told you, after everybody else has already told you. And coaches are so quick to talk about loyalty and team and that kind of thing. And I've always thought Brian Kelly was fake anyway.
Well, after that stunt he pulled on Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh when he was at Central Michigan, I mean, I've never had anything for Brian Kelly, but the hilariousness of how many people he had fooled for some reason.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea which. How did you not know this was coming at some point if you were a Notre Dame fan or supporter?
Well, the answer to that is who leaves Notre Dame? I mean, most everybody that leaves Notre Dame gets fired from Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a destination job
For most people. That being said,
and I'm not entirely sure. Well, other than 100 million over 10 years, I'm not entirely sure why Brian Kelly is leaving Notre Dame. Because as we said on these very same airwaves, they're a fit.
He's certainly not a fit in LSU.
And not at all.
If you listed all 130 something FBS coaches,
He would be last.
He would be 131st. I mean, he would barely be on the list.
And that's the thing. I mean, as much as he's not a fit for LSU, what is the interest on their end in him?
He's a pretty good football coach.
He is a pretty good football coach. He clearly is a pretty good football coach. But I mean, again, how many national championships has Notre Dame won since he's been there?
Yeah, but Notre Dame doesn't have what LSU's got.
Notre Dame doesn't. Notre Dame doesn't have what LSU has, and Notre Dame top end probably isn't LSU top end, but he's the only guy.
I think he's probably the best guy that was available. I mean, coach wise, look, yeah. I don't think the guy's going to be able to recruit to LSU because I don't think he can sell the program,
the LSU experience.
Right. He can't excel LSU like he could sell Notre Dame.
I don't think he can go into a house in Louisiana and have the
impact, win over mama
and have the impact that the last guy had.
No question.
This guy is the anti-Ed Orgeron. I mean, all the stuff that's been being said over the last 12 to 15 hours on Twitter about him going and ordering a poor boy sandwich and, you know, thinking Sprite is too spicy and that kind of thing. I mean, it's funny on one level, but there's an element of truth to a lot of that too.
Yeah. Which is,
I mean, this guy is as bland in an area that's as spicy, you know, in every sense of the word. And what's he going to do when he walks out there for an 8:00 ball game in Death Valley? I mean, you talk about it being a home field advantage, but I mean, he's liable to be as shook as anybody on the visiting sideline.
Maybe. Look, yes, there's a possibility that Brian Kelly is not going to.
Brian Kelly will not coach 10 years at LSU.
Well, I don't think he'll be there 5, but so I'm with you. The contract, I think, is 9 for $95, by the way.
Is it? Okay.
Which is
that's a nice round number.
Yeah. I guess that's what, 10.2 a year, something. 10.2.
Something. Yeah. You said there would be no math.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It could be worse. You could have named Brent Pry your head coach.
Who did?
Virginia Tech. Defensive coordinator from Penn State, Brent Pry, is the new head coach at Virginia Tech.
Oh, my God. Well, you know what? I think what you're seeing or what you're going to see in a lot of these instances is folks wanting to get off the carousel. You know, it's musical chairs, and folks want to make sure that they get one filled
before
with at least somebody that they can tolerate.
Well, Price served as a defensive graduate assistant under Beamer and Bud Foster in the mid to late 90s.
Here's what's crazy. So Shane Beamer basically said, I'm not going back to Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And now his name's being tossed around at Oklahoma.
I think he would go to Oklahoma. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so then why would Shane Beamer, of all people, if he's going to leave South Carolina after 1 year, why would he not go to Virginia Tech? And does he not want to be in his dad's shadow that bad?
I think that would be my concern. I mean, if I were guessing, that's what I would guess.
And, you know, as we've had to kind of wonder with Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma, is Oklahoma a better job than Virginia Tech? I feel like on the surface it is, but with them going to the SEC and you having to go through everything that you're going to have to go through to win big at Oklahoma once they get to the SEC, is Oklahoma worth that headache when at Virginia Tech, if you're winning 9-10 games, they're going to put up a statue for you, especially with the last name Beamer?
I don't know, man. We'll talk about it more. Right now, we're going to talk to David Ubben about it because, well, he would know, at least have some insight. So stick around on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today right after this.
covering the teams you care about. It's Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Once again, live from the Lee Company studio with the Hall of Famer Mo Patton. Here's Chris Yao.
Welcome back in to this Tuesday edition of Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Man, what a crazy whirlwind this week has been, is going to be. It's just nuts, man. College football. Is there anything like it? It's like Dreamland Ribs. Ain't nothing like
Ain't nothing like them nowhere. Goodness gracious.
I mean, my gosh. Hey, funny story. You're gonna love this. Alabama Nation, which is a trash talking Crimson Tide Facebook page, says they fired Coach O because he couldn't beat Bama. Did they look at Brian Kelly's track record? Because it ain't good.
Mantateo ain't walking through that door, is he? Yeah.
He didn't hit any holes either.
Good Lord. Yeah.
That was funny.
It is funny. It is funny. And I'm sure our next guest appreciates it too. David Ubben with The Athletic. National College Football Writer. Is that the best title for you, sir?
It is, indeed.
Okay. What was your reaction to the news last night of Brian Kelly to LSU?
I mean, kind of similar to Lincoln Riley. Very surprised, but when you start doing the math, it makes a lot of sense. You guys mentioned he can't beat Alabama. I don't think he ever was going to be able to beat Alabama at Notre Dame, but you might be able to do it at LSU. I think when you look at LSU and you look at, hey, the last three guys have won national titles. I mean, Brian Kelly is probably a better coach than Les Miles. He's probably a better coach than Ed Orgeron. He's not better than Nick Saban, but if Ed Orgeron and Les Miles can win a national title at LSU, if I'm Brian Kelly, I got to like my chances. And I don't know that was ever going to happen at Notre Dame.
I guess the flip side of that to me, David, is how does Brian Kelly recruit to LSU?
By telling him he's LSU's coach. By telling him come play for LSU. I mean, I think ultimately, people make too much of that. I think Urban Meyer didn't have any links to the South. He was an Ohio guy, a Midwestern guy when he came to Florida. And if I recall correctly, he did pretty well. I think ultimately, when you have that LSU brand behind you, that means a lot more in 2021 than Notre Dame did. And that might not have been true in 1985 or 1995 or 2005, but we're not in those times. We're in 2021, and people want to play in the SEC. They don't want to play for Notre Dame, the best guys. And I think he knows that, and he's bringing his operation to Baton Rouge.
I completely agree with you there. I'm a little worried that he's not going to be able, like we said this earlier, Mo. I'm worried he's not going to be able to go into a Louisiana home and win over Mama, but that may or may not be necessary. LSU may be enough, and for most of those kids in Louisiana, it will be. So there's that. When we initially had talked about having you on, David, it was in order to talk about Lincoln Riley, but obviously it's been nuts, man. And you know that better than anybody, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm right about Lincoln for tomorrow, actually. And I think ultimately, these are moves that we don't see very often. And I think for me, the question with this coaching carousel that I find most interesting is we're seeing two things happen that don't really happen. We're seeing good coaches turn down great jobs. Good coaches and good jobs turn down great jobs. We saw that with Mel Tucker. We saw that with Dave Miranda. I mean, even Jeff Traylor. That's not something that happens very often. And then on the flip side, we're seeing really good coaches and great jobs in Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly jump. And that's going to be the lasting story of this carousel that I think we'll learn in time as to why exactly that's happening. But that's a really, really interesting dynamic because this is a coaching carousel. If it feels different, it's because it is different. We just have not seen either of those things. And, I was fascinated by the Mel Tuckers of the world and the Dave Mirandas of the world sort of stiff-arming some of these big jobs before, and then you add on top of that these sort of breathtaking moves with Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly, and we'll see who Oklahoma ends up bringing in, and we'll see what Notre Dame does. But this is just something that we just do not see. These many big jobs opening and guys making this jump. This is not something that happens.
Speaking with David Ubben, national college football writer of The Athletic, here on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today, and really happy to have him, especially as much as is going on right now. David, is this a product of conference realignment, all of this coaching stuff that we've got going on right now?
In some ways, I mean, it's not sort of all that. I think, I'm writing a little bit tomorrow about that from Oklahoma's perspective and from the SEC's perspective. I think in that case it is. But beyond that, I don't know that it's a super, acute effect, I suppose. So I don't know that I would say a realignment is the main driver, but I would be remiss to not suggest that it had a major impact on Lincoln Riley's thing.
I asked Chris, or I threw it out to Chris and JP yesterday afternoon. Do you feel like there are college football programs that under normal, whatever that is, under normal circumstances would consider a coaching change this offseason that have not dove into it just because of everything that is going on right now?
Well, that's tough. Every situation is different. And not everybody has an AD that can reel in a big fish like that. And not everybody has the money to pay a buyout, especially if you're going to try and, especially right now where we're, 3 or 4 days past the end of the season, if you want to make a change, you haven't done it already, and then you're looking at it and you're doing that, your people are going to be paying that buyout. Your boosters are going to be saying, well, what's on the other side of that? Who can we get? And if you don't have a good answer to that, you might not get that buyout money. So I don't think we'll see it. There's a couple places that you might want to keep an eye on. Obviously, I think there might be some moves coming down the chute here. But I don't think you'll see a ton of guys, make moves in terms of firing people, later this week. That you should know, by Monday morning what you're doing, when the season is ending. You've had enough time to think about it.
Speaking with David Ubben of The Athletic here on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. David, where do Oklahoma and Notre Dame go from here?
Well, I think they'll both be fine because they're Oklahoma and Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's lot in life is not changing. I think independence has obviously suited them. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, especially as the playoff expands. It's going to be easier for them to get in, whereas now it essentially requires them most undefeated. One loss is going to make it really hard for them. But Oklahoma might have a little bit more difficult time. I mean, they have that winning tradition, but things are going to get a little more difficult for them. And we'll see what coach wants that. But you got a really good roster. You got a program that does kind of recruit itself. And that's really attractive. So, from Oklahoma's perspective, I think Brent Venables, if you bring him in and you give him $2-3 million to go shopping for an OC, I think that makes a lot of sense. Similar plan at Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman's going to have a lot of momentum there. And I think if you give him that money to shop for an OC, that's a combination that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Luke Pickle, Matt Campbell, they're going to certainly kick the tires there. I wouldn't be surprised to see them jump. Both of those guys, Ohio State and Notre Dame, have always kind of been the two jobs that if they came after either of those guys, we're going to be the ones that made you jump. But if I'm Oklahoma, I might kick the tires on Matt Campbell too.
You mentioned Venables. You mentioned Freeman. Brent Pry, we talked in the last segment. The DC at Penn State got the Virginia Tech job, apparently. With so many openings and really so few guys that are head coaches at the Power 5 level willing to leave, are we going to see more top assistants getting their shots in this coaching search cycle?
Probably. I would say probably yes. I think can a guy be a first-time head coach differs on the job. It's worked out at a lot of places. I think bigger places that have had a record of success. I mean, you look at Oklahoma, their last two head coaches have done pretty well. Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops, and that was their first head coaching job in both of those cases. Some places are harder than others. Tennessee, I think, is probably the hardest job you could ask for as a first-time head coach. I don't think I'd recommend that one. Being a first-time head coach. But everywhere is different. So it just sort of depends. But I think so. I mean, I think, when you're not reeling in a Brian Kelly or Lincoln Riley, you're still dealing with the fact that there are a lot more openings than there are big-time Grand Slam candidates. And I think you're going to have some disappointed fan bases where you don't necessarily win the press conference. And, that doesn't necessarily matter, but it can certainly help your donations in an off season. But yeah, I think, to sort of circle back to your question, I think, when you don't have a year like this where there are a ton of, big time candidates that you can reel in, I think you start looking at assistants with big time upside, and there's going to be some really good opportunities for those guys.
David, I'm glad you said that you don't always win the press conference, because I'm wondering, will Florida win the press conference with Billy Napier from Louisiana? When I first heard his name connected with that job, I just felt like that's not a name that's going to move the needle with that fan base. What is your read on that?
It won't move the needle, but it doesn't matter, because I think he makes a lot of sense and he checks every box. I think you have a guy who is an obsessive recruiter from the Dabo school, from the Saban school, who've seen those operations. Obviously, can recruit, has done that. An offensive guy, a guy who went on his own, built a program, sustained that program, and now is getting a shot at Florida. I mean, you never really know. I've got less confidence in projecting, the futures of hired coaches than I ever have. I think Tom Herman and Scott Frost beat it out of me. But,
Understood.
It's the same thing that sort of LSU was confronted with, is that, maybe he doesn't necessarily wow anyone, but when you go 10-2 and no one cares about the press conference. And I think that when you look and you see what he's actually done, I have a hard time believing that Billy Napier is going to be. There's very many people that are more qualified and more capable of winning big at Florida than anyone. Does that mean that he's going to? Like I said, I don't know, but all the pieces and all the boxes are there that are checked and give you reason to believe that he's going to do a great job down there.
David Ubben of The Athletic. Real quick, my first thought was, when I heard this Brian Kelly news, was, what does this do to Notre Dame's playoff, scenario? Because they certainly were right there in the mix, and now feels like that this might be a pretty big knock against them. Or does it matter?
No, the committee won't factor that in. They will not factor that in. The committee does not project. They do not deal with hypotheticals. They will not consider that Brian Kelly is not there. That won't factor into their decision at all.
Would it factor into Cincinnati's if Luke Fickell were to leave?
No, they don't project. They just don't. It's the same thing as if a quarterback got hurt. If you found out tomorrow that Bryce Young broke his leg in a scooter accident, it wouldn't affect Alabama's chances or anything like that. They do not project out. They deal with what has happened already and what's on the field and metrics and all those things. They don't project or deal with hypotheticals. So whatever happens with Luke Fickell or whatever happens, obviously, Brian Kelly won't be there coaching the playoffs, will not affect how the committee views those teams.
All right. Looks like Sonny Cumbie's headed to La Tech. So there you go.
I'm not sure I knew La Tech was open.
Skip Holtz is gone. Yeah, Skip Holtz is out. Sonny Cumbie's in, apparently. So congratulations, Bill.
Yeah, it's a good move. I mean, I think, a lot of those schools, the CUSAs, the Sun Belts, and the MAC, you can win big there. There's, everyone's kind of on equal footing. And, Sonny Cumbie has been around the block a bajillion years in Texas, as sort of the, one of the guys on that Leach tree. And now it's his chance to go out on his own and do his own thing. And, I think it speaks to obviously what he was able to do at Texas Tech, that they wanted to keep him around. I mean, Joey McGuire had planned on keeping him, and then he made the jump obviously to take the head coaching job there. And I think he can do a good job. I mean, we'll see. It's sort of, you got to figure out how to run your own programs. He certainly can scheme it up. It'll be his shot. And again, you can win at that place. It's a really good G5 job, and I'm not surprised. And we'll see how he does out there.
Yes, we will. David, thanks so much for taking some time with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
David Ubben of The Athletic. When we come back, we need to talk about the Braves, but we'll see what happens. So stick around. Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Day after this.
This is Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Sports talk like it used to be. Like your crazy uncle used to listen to. Only better. Here's Chris and Mo.
Here we are, right here. How are you? So like I said, we need to talk about the Braves, but we're going to do that later.
But we are going to do it.
We are going to do it because there's a lot to get to. And what we are going to do, though, here is kind of piggyback off what I just asked David about the college football playoff in the top four. Obviously we talked about this yesterday, but
it's kind of like the coaching carousel. I don't think you can talk about it too much. And the new rankings come out tonight, right?
New rankings come out tonight. And I disagree with David. I think if Luke Fickell were to leave, they're not putting Cincinnati in if they can help it.
I don't think they're putting Cincinnati in if they can help it, period.
And, well, that's as good of a reason as you're going to find, right? The problem is that the other team that would probably be in is
in the same situation.
So where do you go from here, right?
Yeah, how are you going to keep Cincinnati out without their head coach and let Notre Dame in without their head coach? So for that reason, it kind of has to be as David outlined it. Although what's funny is that's the exact opposite approach that the NCAA basketball tournament committee takes. They factor injuries and that kind of thing in. Because if you remember Cincinnati, when Kenyon Martin got hurt.
Yep. I remember that specifically.
Yeah.
And
they said
it's because the best player in the country
is hurt.
So all those 20 wins
don't really count.
Take away 20 points and 10 boards from that.
And how many of those would you have gotten? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
now I am going to say this. David Ubben knows a lot more about college football than I do.
Yeah, there's no question there
for you.
There's no question he does.
So
you could combine the knowledge in this room and he would far surpass it, I believe.
Far. Yeah. Sorry, JP.
But
no, you're right. I will say though, for the basketball, I mean, it's a fair thing to bring up. However, slight difference. Basketball
5 versus 22.
Well, it's seeding.
Mm-hmm.
They factor that into the seeding.
Yeah.
And I do agree with David that I don't think that will factor into it for either Notre Dame or for Cincinnati if that were the case. I don't, for football, I just don't think they will.
Well, you're dealing with a lot fewer teams.
Yes. Yeah. Now, if you were, projecting 12, 16 teams, then maybe a seed or two,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that could play into, because then you are seeding. The seeding 1 through 4. I mean, yes, they're seeding, but they're splitting hairs. They're splitting hairs.
Absolutely.
1 through 4. So there's a slight difference. I think in this scenario, probably not something that will be considered. Not to say they won't talk about it, and they are human. And you get down to it, and if it's a toss up, who's to say that wouldn't be a deciding factor for somebody internally?
Right.
You never know.
It's going to be interesting. 1, what comes out tonight, and 2, what comes out Saturday.
I am very interested to see where Oklahoma State is tonight. Very interested.
Well, I think the question is are they ahead of Ohio State or
That's the question.
below it? I mean,
I think the question.
Same with Baylor. I mean, how far does Ohio State drop?
Mm-hmm.
I disagree. I think the question is Oklahoma in front of or behind Notre Dame?
Oklahoma State?
Yes.
No, I don't think they jump them just because of last week. I think if they win against Baylor, they jump them.
Notre Dame beat a bad Stanford team, but they won.
They beat them like they should have beaten them.
So I don't think Oklahoma State jumps Notre Dame. At the risk of sounding like a Notre Dame apologist. Who wants that? But I mean, just trying to look at it objectively, I don't see how Oklahoma State jumps Notre Dame.
I think Oklahoma State has 2 better wins than Notre Dame does. I mean, based on the rankings here, they've beaten 2 top 10 teams. They beat Baylor and they beat Oklahoma. Who's Michigan beat? The reason I asked that question is because I think if Oklahoma State were to jump Notre Dame,
mm-hmm. then when all hell breaks loose Saturday
and be at 5,
mm-hmm.
when they beat Baylor,
should they beat Baylor,
they would move to 3. But it would be a lot harder to move them from 6 to 3
than from 5
to 3.
Okay, so how do they move to 3 by beating Baylor?
Well, because they would have a win over the number 8 team, maybe even the number 7 team.
I get the win.
And they're going, because of those 3 top 15 wins, they're going to jump Cincinnati.
Even if Cincinnati wins, they're going to jump an undefeated Cincinnati.
Correct.
So you think they jump both Notre Dame and Cincinnati with a win over Baylor?
Well, that's why he's thinking if they're in front of Notre Dame,
it's easier
to start with. Then it's easier to just jump them over Cincinnati rather than jumping them over Notre Dame and Cincinnati. Now Notre Dame won't be playing,
but
so
still,
they're easy to jump.
Yeah, I think if they beat Baylor, I think they jump Notre Dame no matter what.
Yeah, but I think if they jump Notre Dame this week, they also jump Cincinnati if both of them win.
I just don't think they can jump Notre Dame this week.
Tonight.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they jump them tonight at all.
I think you're
interesting.
I think you're looking at Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati as your top 4.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're going to
And then the question becomes, like you said, how far does Ohio State fall? I think it's Notre Dame 5, Oklahoma State 6, Ohio State 7.
Then Baylor, and then you go down the line. Yeah,
So Ohio State stays in front of Baylor.
I think so.
probably.
I would agree with that.
That's where I don't think they go behind Ole Miss.
No.
Baylor is the question. And projecting, I think does the committee think that if Baylor beats Oklahoma State,
Then Baylor.
do they deserve to perhaps be in the Final Four? And if so,
a 2-loss team.
Yeah.
This is the problem is when everybody loses
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's got 2
you would
losses.
have to get a couple of losses. You would have to have a couple of losses. I mean, obviously Alabama has to lose out to Georgia. Michigan would have to lose to Iowa, and or Cincinnati would have to lose to Houston. You would need either Cincinnati or Michigan to lose, and Baylor to beat Oklahoma State for a chance. But it depends on where, if Ohio State's in front of them or behind them. Now, I think they jump Ohio State if Ohio State's in front of them and Baylor wins anyway, regardless. But does that get them up to the top 4?
No. Which is why they're going to be behind Baylor.
Depending on who loses.
See, this is the committee's issue is they're going to have to strategically place the other teams in the event that they win.
Right.
So Iowa
Which
moving
to me,
from 16 is going to have to move to 11 or 12.
That's the thing to me, man. The whole thing is manipulated.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%.
Because it's all set so that your if thens are more easily accommodated.
Although you look at Iowa at 16, look who's right ahead of them. A&M, they lost. Wisconsin, they lost.
Yeah.
BYU won. Michigan State won. Oregon won. Oklahoma lost. You could jump Iowa.
They're going to be
all the way
up to 13 or 12, depending on how far you drop Oklahoma.
Easy.
And so I think just because of who's ahead of them, that is not too far fetched.
I guess I've just not paid enough attention, really, or don't factor in probably outside the top 8 or 10 when you're discussing this, and perhaps I should.
I just think I you know what I'm rooting for.
Oh, you're rooting for chaos.
I'm rooting for everybody to lose on Saturday. Alabama,
now,
Cincinnati,
are you rooting for everybody
Michigan, everybody.
Why are you not rooting for Alabama to beat Georgia?
Because that's automatic 2 SEC teams.
Oh, really?
But that would be the ultimate chaotic situation.
That's kind of what I
disagree.
think.
I think Alabama losing and being out means you have Notre Dame at 2, and then the other 2 are
but I think
impossible.
But I think Alabama winning,
then you have 3 automatics. Notre
right,
Dame.
and so the chaos is over 1 spot.
Mm-hmm. It's more chaotic that way.
See, I would rather have the chaos over 2 spots.
That's less chaotic.
No,
it's not for Georgia. It's not for Georgia and Notre Dame. Though.
No, it's not. It's not chaotic for them, but it's chaotic for everybody else.
No,
because
it is way more chaotic for them because they don't know who they're going to play.
Oh, but they know they're in.
Yeah. Well, I'm just.
I think if Alabama beats Georgia, then there's everybody battling for 1 spot. That's kind of that Hunger Games thing.
Man,
that's where your chaos is.
Because then
I just don't want Alabama to win because I think they're bad.
If Alabama beats Georgia, then either Michigan or Cincinnati is going to be out.
Mm-hmm. Because
that's
both lost.
Chaotic.
Yes,
that is chaotic.
But then what? Then Baylor's in.
No.
Yes.
You got If Alabama beats Georgia, you've got Alabama, Georgia.
First off, if Alabama beats Georgia, does Michigan then go to number 1?
No, Michigan's losing 2.
To Iowa?
Michigan loses.
But I'm saying if Alabama beats Georgia, then if Michigan and Cincinnati both win, one of them's going out.
Oh, yeah.
That's my point. Michigan at 2
could be
out if Alabama beats Georgia.
No.
And if that's not chaos, I don't know what is.
Cincinnati would be out. They're not keeping a Big Ten champion
Probably, but I'm saying, but Cincinnati's in there at 4 right now. That's my point. That's more chaotic.
out.
It is.
I think that's just
JP, we're right.
Yes.
I just
we
think
are.
that's more unfortunate.
It's more chaotic.
There would be zero, and when I say zero, I mean absolute zero drama to that 4th spot. 98% of the country outside of, or 100% of the country outside of the Cincinnati area would know that Michigan was getting in. That's not chaotic. That's boring. Give me 2 spots. Or give me everybody else losing for 1 spot. That's fine. Cincinnati loses, Michigan loses, Oklahoma State loses, Baylor wins. Baylor's a two-loss Big Ten champ. Do they get in over Ohio State? I don't know. I guess it depends on tonight, right? Depends on if they're ahead of Ohio State tonight or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's please let everybody lose.
But even if Baylor is behind Ohio State tonight,
They could jump them.
if they win, they will jump them
Ohio State
because
is
Ohio
out,
State is
though, right?
idle.
You're right. Ohio State's out.
Yeah, I
That's not
don't.
what you said yesterday. You said they could get in because they didn't play and didn't lose again.
There was a chance, but looking at it right now,
Yeah. And I don't doubt that I said that. I mean, but I think
now
with clearer eyes and fuller hearts, I can't lose.
now
I think Ohio State's out.
here's a scenario: Oklahoma State beats. Well, here's the big question: does Ohio State drop behind Notre Dame?
Yes.
Yeah.
No question.
Then
I don't think that's a question. I don't think it's a question of whether Ohio State drops.
Ohio
behind
State's
Notre
going
Dame.
to 8.
Then they're out.
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8. One of the two.
So Baylor's. So are they ahead of or behind Baylor then? Because what we've been.
That's the question.
Yeah.
So should be fun. It'll happen right after our show. So yeah, more college football on the other side of the break because I have a question for you guys. So you guys come back right after this.
covering the teams you care about. It's Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Once again, live from the Lee Company studio with the Hall of Famer Mo Patton. Here's Chris Yao.
Welcome back in Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Throw up a graphic, JP. It's all good. Not worried about it. If you're watching us on video,
Pretty image.
yeah,
Pretty image.
it is what it is.
What is it?
You don't have to keep your eyes on it. You can just listen.
I can't see it.
Hey, your camera just decided to dip out on us.
Oh well.
So you get the image of the
probably
two of
just
you.
as well.
Yeah.
Actually, if a camera had to dip out, that's probably the one.
Well,
Because you guys are so much prettier than I am anyway. So.
man, y'all didn't notice I don't have my glasses on today.
Yeah,
I
you
did
do look,
notice.
You do look weird.
Because obviously we had the situation with Charlie where she decided that hitting me in the face was a good idea enough times that it broke the nose piece off of my glasses.
So wearing your glasses was more painful than not being able to see.
No, I made an appointment yesterday for the eye doctor today and went to the eye doctor, and so I have in some contacts. I've been meaning to get contacts forever. I just haven't. So I just, I never ordered any from online, or I lost my prescription or whatever it was, So I went and got that taken care of today. So
So you can see.
I can see, and I'll be able to wear some sunglasses this weekend in the bright sun. I won't have to worry about, that sort of thing.
So now when Charlie hits you, instead of hitting you in the glasses, she's going to hit you in the eye.
Well, at least it won't cut me. A glasses.
Maybe.
Less chance of her fingers cutting me than the metal from the missing nose piece of my glasses. So we're just gonna
mess around and get that eye dotted. Really
maybe
leave Charlie
so.
alone.
Did you guys happen to watch the Iron Bowl?
I did.
I watched the tail end of regulation and then overtime.
Well, that's all I need you to watch, because I have a question. College overtime is awful, right? Like, this is worse than it was before.
I don't know.
The thing is, I don't know that there is a good way.
Well, I'm going to throw out a way, and you tell me what you think.
Penalty kicks?
Yes.
Don't ask the Nashville Soccer Club about that, by the way.
Missed all of them. Yeah.
Some of them not even close.
3 of them weren't even,
in the area code.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they kicked them to Pittsburgh. And a lot of rules from arena football are goofy, but their overtime rules
What were they? I don't even remember.
Perfect. 1 possession each, then sudden death.
What's this, just sudden death in general? You
1
like
possession
the NFL?
each. 1 possession each.
Play the whole field?
Play the whole field. 1 possession each.
So you kick off and then you go, and
if they score a touchdown, that's
It's
okay. No.
Oh.
No, if you kick off and they score a touchdown, your offense gets a chance. If you score a touchdown, after that, it's sudden death.
Turnover, it's over, though, after the
Turnover, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
1 possession each. And
until somebody scores.
And not until somebody scores, because that's what they were doing, right? 1 possession. That's all you get.
So 1 possession
then,
each.
after 1
So
possession each. If
then
there's
it's sudden
somebody
death.
who's leading,
if somebody's leading, you have a winner. If you're still tied, it's sudden death.
Okay. And so walk me through the sudden death then.
That's it.
No.
Sudden death. You score, it's over.
play the whole field.
Play the whole field.
Regular.
Just like football.
So you kick it off
After the score.
second possession
Correct.
of overtime, then
He's saying you don't line up at the 25. You just kick it off.
Yep.
A team
Play
gets it.
football.
If they
And you
go
play
kick a field
football.
goal, they kick off. And if the other team scores a touchdown, they win. If they kick a field goal, then they kick off, and the next score wins.
Next score wins.
Or if the
Because
defense stops them after score, it's over.
it gives both your offense and defense a chance to win the game. Okay. But then after that, we're trying to
just
go
playing
home.
football.
We're trying to go home.
Here's the argument against that. It works in arena league because you've
the
got
field is shorter.
50 yards, or less. How long is it?
50.
50. I think the argument against that is that you could play all day, and potentially and risk injury
and player safety.
Yeah, I think it's the player safety argument is going to be why that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you're ever going to overcome a player safety argument,
and I don't
nor should you. But
and for that reason, I don't think you would ever see a full field involved in overtime.
Yeah.
Well, then let's just.
And you
play
probably
50.
wouldn't see
care.
a kickoff either.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Well, I mean, we can start at the 25 on the other end, just like a touchback if you don't want to kick off, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with college overtime was it was too many plays when it was 7 overtimes. Whatever. Teams only have so many 2-point plays. All right, they only have so many.
That's why they think it's not going to take that long.
I bet you Nick Saban's got more 2-point plays than a lot of coaches.
Most of them, I'm sure. My biggest issue is, guys, we're taking more time to get on and off the field than it does to run the two plays. All right, and secondly, you're giving each team a timeout to run one play. Auburn took a timeout in Alabama's 3rd overtime.
Yeah. I mean, when you come out, once your defense has been on the field, you ought to be able to and ready. You ought to have a play to run. Unless you've got a misalignment or something. I don't know.
But then we got to take a timeout to run the one play. And then we got to take another timeout to go to the other end of the field because the offensive team doesn't want to play in front of the student section. And then it makes the game, it makes the overtime experience unbearable for me. It's just dumb.
Well, your team should win in regulation then.
I would rather watch football. And to me, that's not football.
I think you're just trying to be contrarian.
I just think it
wouldn't be the first time if that were the case.
Was that not intriguing though? Just the back and forth, no matter how it happens. I mean, just the idea that it's overtime and 2-point conversion. What a great catch by Auburn for their 2-point. I mean, it just you get one shot from the 2-yard line,
right.
3-yard line.
Well, then let's do this. Let's have the offense and defense of each team line up on either end of the field and make the referees just run it. It's a lot quicker. Referees, y'all got to go the other end.
I'm not sure how they're going to feel about that.
My point is that the idea of that overtime system is far better as far as determining a true winner of the game than what we currently have.
Well, you could also argue. I mean, you get to overtime, they play kind of equally. At that point, it's kind of a toss up anyway. I mean,
yeah, especially if you've got a spread team versus a team that runs a power out, that definitely helps the spread team in the 2-point conversion situation, doesn't it?
It depends.
No,
that's
it. Navy has a better chance to beat Mississippi State
from the two
every time.
Yeah.
Well, they'll know that going in, and they'll do everything they can not to hit overtime. Seriously though, you take that in consideration when going for 2, when to kick a field goal, when not to kick a field goal, when to go for it. I mean, all of that plays into it. It's all part of the game.
Should Auburn have gone for 2 in the first overtime?
In retrospect,
you're at home.
I mean, I don't know how you can know that at the time.
I don't know.
The fact that your quarterback is literally out there playing on a
I did not understand why they were running rollouts or whatever sprint outs or whatever you would call them for him.
They would have been better off having Tank Bigsby just take direct snaps. I mean,
well, you're right. Although, he made a couple of throws. He could stand back and make a throw, but he couldn't go anywhere.
But it completely, I mean, it took 50% of their offense away, if not more. And
Maybe back to your question, should they have gone for 2 in the first overtime? Maybe.
Yes, they should have. They had one.
Did they have it first or?
No, they had it second.
Oh, yeah.
You see, I knew Alabama was going to play for overtime and not go for 2.
Sure.
In,
Well, they
in
had
regulation.
momentum.
Well, not only did they have momentum, but Auburn's quarterback was playing on a peg leg.
Yep.
You figured you could stop them.
Yep.
And then they didn't, for that matter. But whatever. Yeah, I was just curious if, what you guys thought. I'm not a big fan of. I was a big fan of college overtime before. I thought the 25 playing it. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some Arkansas Tennessees. You're going to have some. Was it Arkansas LSU that went to 7 as well?
It went. Yeah, I think so.
You're going to have a few 7 overtime games, but I mean, that happens so rarely, and I think the NCAA probably overreacted to that. They took the exception rather
The
than
NCAA
the rule.
overreact.
Never.
That never happens.
But I liked the 25. I thought it was a good compromise.
I think the 25 is. I think it's better than the 10,
Sure.
which is what they do in high school. I think the 10 works for high school.
Yeah, because you don't have field goal kickers. In
I don't think the 10 would work for
instances.
college.
Right. No, we'd be kicking field goals all day.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, anyway, just thought that was interesting. Other college football thoughts. I don't really have a whole lot, but what I do think is in the Heisman race, what are your thoughts on a defensive player winning the thing?
In principle, I don't have an issue.
Is it
I don't
possible?
have an issue with it.
I think this year it is possible.
I think it's more possible this year. I think you have to take each year on its own. I think the Michigan guys got a great shot just because there's no, and it's odd that if it were Aiden Hutchinson, then both times it's been a defensive player, it's been a Michigan player. But
certainly had a Heisman moment in a high profile. I mean, that I think this could be the year that it happens because of that game.
Because of that game, and because there's not been any offensive player that has just said, I'm that guy.
Well, and when Matt Corral is considered by a majority of the season to be one of your top 2 or 3, he's really good, but he plays for Ole Miss and he's not a Manning. And
his team, while they won 10 games, is not.
They were never in consideration.
Never
really for an SEC championship or the playoffs,
which isn't necessarily their fault.
No,
that they play in the same division with Alabama.
And then Alabama's quarterback,
Bryce Young,
although he made as good of a reason for him to be the Heisman this week in his performance in the Iron Bowl on that last drive. 95
just
yards.
On the last drive, though. The rest of it
correct
was.
But that's oftentimes to be the Heisman, to get that vote, because there's so many people that vote on the Heisman that don't see the whole game.
Sure.
They see that highlight. And that was big.
Now, I'll tell you this. Alabama's offensive line couldn't have blocked us 3 half the game.
Speak for yourself.
They were bad. So I can understand, giving Bryce a pass for most of it. And what he did in that final drive was nothing short of incredible. And it probably is his Heisman moment. Much like that Mark Ingram drive against South Carolina.
By the way, you had Ohio State winning, right?
I did.
Who did you have?
Michigan.
To cover?
No, I had Ohio State.
Yeah, I had Michigan, by the way. I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's okay.
Yeah.
When we come back, we've got some Braves to talk about. So let's talk about them.
Go get them, T. Willie. Go Big Blue.
We'll be back after this.
When the Braves play, Chris and Mo are talking about it.
Yeah, that's trash can juice.
Speak for yourself.
For better or worse, on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Back to the Lee Company studio. Yep, they're fans too. Here's Chris and Mo.
Welcome back in Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. The Braves didn't play, but we are going to talk about some offseason moves. John Heyman says that teams are trying to pry Freddie Freeman away from Atlanta. Dodgers, who lost Corey Seager and could move Max Muncy to second base, may have the best hope for the Southern California native.
So Seager has signed?
Yeah, Seager's in Texas. Yeah, him and
Well, I knew they signed Marcus Semien.
Marcus Semien, yeah.
But
Signed both of them.
I thought that Texas was in on Trevor Story as well, but I did not realize that they had signed Seager. I guess that was yesterday, because I think Semien was Sunday. So caught up in college football coaches moving that I missed Seager to Texas. So I guess Semien's going to play second there, and Seager's going to play short.
Your guess is as good as mine, Mo.
Gotcha.
Put a bat in their hands, all that matters.
Apparently. Because you're talking about Max Muncy playing either first or second. A couple of years ago, the Reds signed Mike Moustakas from Kansas City, who had been a third baseman his entire career, moved him to second. So I don't know. There are times when I just don't recognize baseball.
How can you play first or any other? First and third, maybe. But
Yeah.
first and
middle, you're right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Who am I and what do I know? What I don't know is if Freddie Freeman's coming back to Atlanta. And every day that passes is more and more scary. Boy, I just, if Freddie Freeman went to the Dodgers, I would almost have to disown him.
Freeman?
Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, we don't know you. I don't know him. He's dead to me.
I mean, just looking through, which Freddie's trending on Twitter thanks to Heyman's tweet, and nothing obviously specific coming through. But I just feel like this is a make or break moment for the future of the franchise. Not necessarily that Freddie is irreplaceable, because I think he can be, but you have to have a backup plan. I mean, you can't lose Freddie Freeman and not sign someone of significant value. And it worries me that I'm not sure there's another guy out there who has similar value.
There's that.
And it's,
and I think that's a very real consideration. And who else in the market could you go get to have anywhere close to the impact of a Freddie Freeman on that team?
I mean, Matt Olson is the only name that comes to mind. Also a left-hander.
And I mean, he would do.
Hit 39 home runs last year, drove in 111. Yeah, he'd do.
He'd do.
And he's younger. So there's that. And he's 5 years younger. You could give that guy 6 or 7 or 8 years and not feel bad about it.
Shouldn't feel bad about giving it to Freddie.
I agree.
But yeah.
But neither here nor there. The outfield, or at least the bench part of it, was shored up today as Guillermo Heredia signed a 1-year, $1 million deal. We got swords, baby. We ain't got a third. We ain't got a 3-hole hitter, but we got swords.
Hey, stick Willie Doubles in there. Can he play first base?
Can he play first base? He can play. Very good defender. Very good defender. And
some of the best defensive plays we saw in center field this season were made by number 38. So
now here's where things get dicey. Is the Braves outfield with Heredia. You now have Rosario, Heredia, and I think Duvall declined.
Yeah.
As well as Soler is a free agent. But Marcell Ozuna is eligible to return
and play immediately.
With his suspension being retroactive to September 10th when he was placed on administrative leave. Now, Major League Baseball, the district attorney's office, essentially did their own investigation. Now, here's the thing. The district attorney's office has charged him with something. He has pleaded guilty to something because he's in a child diversion program, which means that his record could be expunged, but that he at least admits to something. The story is murky at best, but apparently there was a knife involved and it wasn't him holding it, but he did hit her with his cast. Now, whether he was trying to hit the knife out of her hand with the cast, I'm not going to speculate.
And I've really tried to stay away from this story ever since it happened. I think we've tried to stay away from this story.
We have
ever since it happened because so much of it is speculative. There is a faction out there that feels like there's no excuse for a man to hit a woman, and I can't argue with that. But is a person supposed to defend themselves? And we don't know if this was a defensive situation or what. We don't know.
What we do know is that the initial report was not backed up by body cam footage. We know that. I mean, that's been widely reported and backed up by the fact that they haven't charged him with any type of domestic assault or violence, right? So the reason that we have to get into it here is because he's still under contract for 3 years.
3.
And it's a big contract. It's not like you can just cut him and be done with it.
No, you can't. So you've got to try to move him or
play him.
Keep him.
And with the designated hitter, most likely coming in the new CBA, you got to get another outfielder. And Soler has to be it, right? Or do you try to get Duvall and Soler?
Oh,
because Acuna's not coming back until
I don't expect him
June,
back
July
at the start. Yeah, and you know, a year ago we'd have said Drew Waters or Christian Pache, and clearly that's not.
Pache is not an option. Waters, I don't know. I think he's a Rosario type guy. You know, can hit lead off and play good defense, but he's not, you know, he's definitely not a Soler power type guy. He does hit home runs, but much like Rosario, they're few and far between.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing in Nashville where he hit like 4 in a series. So there's that. But
I think you can count on that.
The outfield is just a big question right now. This entire team's a big question. It's because, like we said yesterday, Alex Anthopoulos keeps everything pretty close to the vest. And I think he has Guillermo Heredia guarding the door for any leaks.
With a sword.
With swords. But they did get did shore up the bullpen maybe a little.
Maybe a little, maybe at some point.
maybe a lot. I mean, this is a guy who was as good as anybody 2 years ago in 2019 in the shortened season.
Mhm.
But Braves signed former Padres, I guess, closer.
I guess, with
Had
those save
40 something
numbers.
saves.
41, I believe.
Gosh, what's the first name? Kirby
Kirby Yates.
Kirby Yates. And I think it's never bad to have bullpen options, especially a guy who's pitched in high leverage situations and has been successful. Now he's coming off his second Tommy John surgery, but the Braves have seemed to have some success with guys coming off Tommy John.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you sign as many as they've signed.
Law of averages says you're going to have success with some of them, huh?
Earned his first career All-Star selection in 2019. 1.19 ERA, led the majors with 41 saves. Finished ninth in NL Cy Young voting in 2019. But again, coming off of that Tommy John, I wonder what this is in reaction to or what this is leading up to. It's a 2-year, $8.25 million deal with an option, a club option for 24. And again, we saw that bullpen over 162 games where the closer spot was not always wonderful. And we saw that bullpen over the postseason where closer was Nails. And is Anthopoulos trying to insure himself against, a regression to the norm at the closer position?
Or, to be honest with you, I'm not going to complain about anything Will Smith does next year. Will Smith could go out and go 35 of 38 again and give up 17 hits per game.
If you want to do that, that's fine. I want to win the game that's in front of me.
Well,
and when
he did that a lot.
And he didn't do it a lot.
He only blew 4 saves. 4. That's not a lot. It felt like he pitched terribly because he was getting lucky and loading the bases and then getting guys out. He did pitch terribly because he was loading the bases and getting guys out, and we didn't think that was sustainable. Well, neither did he. So he started not letting people get on base. But he did that at the most opportune time, and that was in the playoffs. So I'm going to let Will do Will until he starts losing games at a rapid pace. What Alex Anthopoulos is doing is trying to save himself from having to make a deal at the deadline. Hey, guys, don't worry. August rolls around, and Kirby's going to be in here.
I just wonder where he fits. I mean, with the slider boy, Luke Jackson, with Mentor and Matzik and Smith. Now you've got a righty has a 41 save season under his belt. And that's a lot of arms, a lot of high leverage arms.
Jackson can't pitch in high leverage. He's got to be seventh inning or earlier.
Okay.
But that's okay.
Matzik, Mentor, Smith, Yates. 4 guys for 2 innings.
And Jackson.
You said Jackson can't.
I understand that, but you're talking about 5 guys who you hope have to only pitch 3 innings. That's called, and obviously Kirby's not going to be there until at least the deadline, if not later. Right?
I don't know. I don't know how far out he is from his. He missed the end. He underwent Tommy John on March 24th.
Oh. Well, he should be back.
This is his second one. He also underwent Tommy John in 06.
Yeah, that's
So he had 14 years apart.
yeah. Well, it's probably because he was pitching so well in that shortened season that they used him a lot more than he'd ever been used in the past. He got overused, which is what we don't want to see happen with Matzik and Jackson and the rest of our bullpen guys. So having 5 guys for 3 innings sounds like a plan to me.
It'll be interesting.
It's going to be tough. Well, when you manage to the bullpen, you're going to have plenty to manage to, I guess.
But if you're going to roll the same guys out there every time, it don't matter who you got.
Hopefully he doesn't feel like he has to, and maybe that's what AA was going for. I don't know. It's Top 5 Tuesday. When we come back, free agent signings, Major League Baseball, most impactful, right after this.
Lists are for suckers. Oh, did I leave my mic on? It's Top 5 Tuesday on Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today. Here's Chris and Matt.
Welcome back in. Southern Middle Tennessee Sports Today, presented by Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint. Chris Yao Mopat and JP Plant here with you on this Top 5 Tuesday. As we were just talking about the Atlanta Braves, it's worth mentioning that our sister station WKRM has
World champion Atlanta Braves.
you're defending.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun. We're going to have to recut all of our promos.
Everyone.
You're listening
And come
to
up
the
with some new ones
You're listening to the defending world champion Atlanta Braves.
right here.
Oh man. Before we get to the top 5, one other thing we wanted to mention, and that is something that's kind of gotten overshadowed by college football coaching carousels and the ridiculousness that was this weekend in in sports. Mo?
Lee Elder, who was the first black golfer to play at the Masters at Augusta National when he did so in 1975, died over the weekend, passed away at the age of 87. And I didn't find out about it until yesterday evening myself, and I just thought it was really kind of unfortunate that wasn't more top of mind with more people, because I remember basically when that happened. I mean, I was 10, 11 years old, and it was a big deal for obvious reasons in the mid 70s. Clearly it wasn't something that was universally applauded. And Mr. Elder went through a lot to achieve that. And he was a he was a trendsetter. He broke barriers and at a time when that just wasn't done. And like I said, I just obviously our condolences to his family and to his fans, and I just felt like it should have been more recognized. I don't. There was a lot going on this weekend, but yeah, wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that here on this show.
Mo, I'm curious your thought on him finally being one of those honorary
The starters,
along with Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player and others, and Arnold has been there.
Fantastic and long overdue.
Yeah, how many years did he get? It wasn't.
I think this past year
was the first one
I
that he
believe
was.
so.
Yeah, I'm glad he got at least one in. You're right; it was long overdue.
Yeah, I think this one earlier this year was his first / only. He was, according to this article on on NPR.org, he was one of the 3 honorary starters alongside Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player in the ceremonial first shots to begin the 2021 Masters earlier this year. So, although he was in poor health and walked onto the course wearing an oxygen tube, the 86-year-old was deeply moved by the recognition. So I take it that was his first such honor and recognition by Augusta National. And again, that's unfortunate, but better late than never.
Yeah.
There's
So
that.
Lee Elder passes away Sunday morning at the age of 87.
Let's talk about this top 5, because yesterday we were trying to think of something, and we kind of kicked around the idea of the top 5 college football openings, but there's 2 fewer today and 3 more.
Yeah, it's changed even since yesterday.
Well, we don't know what's open and what's not.
Yeah,
that's right. So we decided to kind of keep going with baseball here. And the top 5 most impactful free agent signings of 2021.
Just this year?
All time?
I thought it was all time of 2021.
Well, hold on. No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. We didn't make that designation yesterday.
I thought we did, but that's okay. Yeah, 2021 is too fluid, I think.
I mean,
Were you ready?
I had a top 5.
I did not.
That's going deep.
My number.
I got a top 5 all time. I don't have it this year.
My number 2 was the fact that everything the Texas Rangers have done. Simeon, Seager, they signed John Gray from Colorado.
Yeah, see, that's too far down the rabbit hole for most people.
Well, I have a tracker in front of me. So it's
go.
easy to see what they've done. My number 1 was the future signing of Freddie Freeman with the Atlanta Braves.
Projecting.
Oh man. Well, since I don't have a list,
you can quickly find
you
one.
guys go.
I've got 3 honorable mentions. as I stall for Chris. One would be the Braves' number one starter this past year, Charlie Morton, coming from Tampa Bay. The two others would be Hall of Famers Larry Walker signing from the Montreal Expos to the Rockies, and Pudge Rodriguez signing with Detroit. Two of the all-time greats joining their final teams.
All right. I can go a couple of honorable mentions. Adrian Beltre, the Rangers, had
Solid.
6 seasons from 2011 to 2016, won a pennant. Also, Manny Ramirez, Manny being Manning to the Red Sox, 8 seasons, 2 titles, including that one that got the monkey off their back, broke the curse. So there you go.
And a lot of folks kind of forget that he was somewhere before he got to Boston. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he'd made a name for himself in Cleveland.
No doubt.
What did he not play against the Braves in the World Series? He was on that team. That's what I thought. That was a good Indians team.
Very good Indians team.
All right. I will start with my number 5, and I would say probably when Palmeiro signed with the Rangers. He got a 5-year, $45 million contract, but he averaged 43 homers and 122 RBIs.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad.
Pretty good value there. Yeah. My number 5, and this is going back. Nolan Ryan. No, not Nolan Richardson. Heck of a high school baseball player in El Paso. Thank you very much. Nolan Ryan in the 1979 offseason signed a 4-year, $4.5 million contract with the Houston Astros, making him the first.
That's what I thought. Yep.
The first major league player to earn more than $1 million in a season. Through 24 complete games in his first 4 seasons. 24. So
never see that again.
No.
My number 5, like him or not, still a big free agent. Barry Bonds to the Giants, 93 to 98, 6 seasons at MVP. And of course, the asterisk 73 home runs in 01. So later on. Yep.
I'm going to go with Randy Johnson. When he signed with the Diamondbacks, he led them to a World Series. They don't win the World Series if they don't sign Randy Johnson, period. So
I try not to think about that.
Well, you and me both, but
yeah.
I'm not wrong.
No. You're not. That was your number 5?
Number 4.
That was your number 4. Okay.
That's right.
My number 4 is the straw that stirred the drink in the Bronx. Reggie Jackson.
Reggie.
Signed with the Yankees in 1976, 5 years, $2.9 million. Came there already having been a 6-time All-Star with 2 World Series championships in Oakland. In 5 seasons in New York, 12 postseason home runs in 34 games. And a countless number of fights with Billy Martin.
He definitely was the straw. He did a lot of stirring.
No doubt.
Yep. He wasn't a Bond martini drinker. Stirred, not shaken.
Yeah. Well, both.
But
shaken and stirred. Yeah.
My number 4, another maybe questionable, but still for what happened on the season, Roger Clemens to the Blue Jays. 2 seasons, 2 Cy Youngs.
Doesn't get much better, does it?
Yep. That's about all you can say. 97, 98.
Yeah, no question there. My number 3 is going to be I'm gonna go with Terry Pendleton.
Ooh,
Homer
pick. I like it.
Well, yeah, and the reason is because this is a guy who was like a coach on the field.
Mm-hmm.
He really was. He helped those shortstops, whoever it might have been, Belliard or Blauser, or it was so many people.
He was the glue.
He was the glue guy for that infield. No question.
He was a glue guy in that club.
For that whole team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming over from the success that he had with that successful Cardinals organization. My number 3 is Ichiro.
Your number 2, is it not?
No,
We're at 3?
I started. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We got 2 minutes left, by the way.
Okay. Ichiro Suzuki.
Maybe it was 2. I don't know.
No.
You're right.
Continue.
Yeah. That's your 3.
That's my 3.
All right. My 3, Max Scherzer, Nationals, 7 seasons, 2 Cy Youngs, and a title.
Number 2, Roger Clemens with the Blue Jays. There's no question there. Mo?
Number 2 is Barry Bonds. And you can't argue with what he did. You can argue with how he did it, but what he did is pretty undeniable once he got to San Francisco.
All right. My number 2, Homer or not, it's true. Greg Maddux,
That's
93 to 97.
That's number 1. It's not
your
close.
Homer.
That's our number 1.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, my number 1, it'll be hard to argue
All right.
when you hear some numbers.
If you say so.
5 seasons, 3 Cy Youngs, of course, the title.
Well, we don't really need to discuss your number 2 at this point,
because
we need
it
to
is
discuss
our
your
number 1.
Randy Johnson.
Now,
4 seasons, 4 Cy Youngs.
What Greg Maddux meant to the Atlanta Braves
He
was
had 2 other
infinitely
pitchers.
more
Yeah,
important than what Randy Johnson meant to Arizona.
I don't know.
lower ERA, lower WHIP.
Just the impact. I'm
3 Cy Youngs, 7 Gold Gloves.
Take Maddux off the Braves. Take Randy off the Diamondbacks. Which team does better?
Braves, probably.
Okay, that's my point. There's my point.
And
The
that's a
most
decent point.
impactful free agent signing.
The best free agents. No, because the Braves getting Maddux changed the entire trajectory of that franchise's mindset. Yes, Johnson took them to the World Series, but the Braves don't go get some of those other
folks that they went and got
without Maddux and Smoltz on there. So anyway, come back tomorrow, 4 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stick around for whatever's next. Maybe the
Sports Mix Live.
Sure, on WZYX. So have a great day. Stay cool, Columbia.